the biggest entrepreneur destination on the planet. This is Business Rockstars. The biggest entrepreneur destination on the planet. Welcome to Business Rockstars. I've got a rock star for you right now, Jeff Yasuda, CEO and co-founder of Feed FM. Thanks for stopping by and joining us from San Francisco.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So for those who don't know, what is Feed FM?
Yeah, so we're a B2B SaaS company, and we're all about driving engagement for brands by using music. And what's interesting is young adults, so millennials and Gen Z, are now the largest age group in the United States, and they are way over indexed on music consumption. You know, what's interesting is, 80% of young adults, listen to music, weekly. 80% actually like the brand artist connection. There's this whole concept of selling out, where brands and bands would actually sell to brands per se, but now it's kind of this concept almost of selling in, and that's where, we help, on the one side, musicians and artists monetize better. On the other hand, we help brands actually engage with their customers by using their favorite medium, which is music.
And of course, the difficulty I'm sure that you or maybe other music companies experience is that there are artists behind those songs own those songs.
That's
but
right.
You help take care of that issue, right?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. So we handle all the, what I call brain damage associated with licensing, and so our platform has been developed to actually handle all of that, make it completely easy for whatever brand to actually come and use our service. We fully indemnify them. We handle all the licensing issues, take that off the table so they can focus on their fitness app, or if it's apparel company or whatever it might be.
Yeah, so how did you come up with this idea?
It was interesting. I guess a couple things. One of my buddies at one of the big beer companies actually had approached me at one point and said, we're thinking about running this social campaign where we want to have, branded radio experience. And I don't want to just send people to some of the other consumer music companies to do this. I want to own this. I want this to be in my owned media on my Facebook page, for example.
Interesting.
And he said, there's got to be a company that does this. And so we actually looked around to try to find if there's somebody that does this, and there wasn't. And so we said, okay, well, we'll do it. And so he actually was my first customer. And that's
the best way to start a business, when you already have a customer.
It was really fun. And and of course over time, there's learnings, and you improve the product, and you work on these initial enhancements that may be custom per se, but that you can then use for other customers, and that's where it's fun. Then sure enough, one customer leads to 2, leads to 4, leads to 5, and it starts getting more exciting.
So what were some of those first steps that you took to make this business idea an actual reality?
Yeah, first obviously you got to build the product, right? You have to actually have something that works per se, but a lot of times there's a balance, right? You don't want to. Sometimes in the startup world, we call it, building a bridge in a desert, right? It makes no sense. You're building a product, then you're trying to find a customer. In our case, we were lucky because we had a customer pulling us in that direction. But fundamentally, you got to ask, okay, well, how repeatable is this? People talk about scale. That's kind of a loaded word for a lot of founders. A lot of investors say, well, how does this scale? I think the better question is, how can you repeat this for more than just a couple customers? How can this be interesting? And again, you can build a great business.
Market?
Yeah, exactly. But you can build a great business that also isn't necessarily scalable to millions of businesses.
You have a higher price point.
That's right. That's exactly right. But you have to figure out, obviously, is there a real market for the product?
Yeah. So how did you figure that out? If there was a real
market?
Nice.
It was nice to have a customer define the product. So so this beer company came in. They said they want this. But as we kind of went deeper into kind of the thought process, we thought, okay, well, what industries work really well for our product? And so, for example, at one point we went, and some of those work and some of those don't work. We went down the path, for example, with restaurants. What we found, unfortunately, and they were some of our first customers per se, unfortunately, a lot of restaurants don't have, unless it's a chain, doesn't really have a big marketing budget. So, in terms of financial wherewithal, and sort of the longevity of an ideal high-paying customer, restaurants worth that. But then we started looking at other areas like apparel, lifestyle apparel that are selling to young adults, and then it was a totally different world. A lot of these retail outlets, for example, we work in the Westfield Mall, for example, in San Francisco. Yeah. You walk through the mall, there's not a single store that doesn't have music cranking out of it. Right?
I know. That is exactly what I thought about when I went to your site. Is I was thinking about the shopping experience when you go into a store and they are just cranking that music, like you said, and it just makes you feel like pumped up.
Oh yeah, and you're like yes, and you want to spend, yeah, exactly. And we're sort of taking it from a different approach. We're starting on the digital side first. So brands like American Eagle, outfitters like Charlotte Russe, we're actually starting on the digital side first. They've got a very young audience that are very mobile savvy. They do most of their purchases on the phone as well.
Absolutely.
So we actually have a radio player. I mean, you can almost think of it as a white labeled Pandora player that lives in their app.
Nice.
And so they can actually go in, they curate the music.
And when you say they, you mean the store curates it?
So this is the brand. So this is
the brand.
So
okay,
the brand will curate. We'll work with the brand as well to help pick the music.
Based on who their target audience
That's right.
is.
But what's really fun about this is that we use data then. So we use actual data to determine what songs do people like, what do they dislike, what do they skip, what songs were they listening to when they actually bought the product. And we'll then take that information and ideally inform the brick and mortar side, because in brick and mortar there's really not much data.
Right.
That you have. It's like, okay, there are more people bopping their heads on this song than the other one. That's not compelling, right? So this is where we think we have kind of an interesting edge, as we start expanding into the brick and mortar segment.
Yeah, and because of all these hoops that you have to jump through in the music industry, a lot of people are advised to not enter it.
That is exactly right.
So what is your advice to somebody who really wants to enter the space?
Yeah, it's a great point. I think I used to tell young entrepreneurs as they move into the music space that starting a company is really hard, period. Then you sprinkle a little music dust, music licensing on it, and it gets very, very complicated, right? So not only do you have to be an expert in running your business, if it's selling clothing or whatever it might be, you also have to become an expert on the complexities around music licensing. And the challenge around music licensing, particularly in the consumer space, a lot of investors, a lot of venture capitalists, when you mention anything about music and your startup, they will run for the hills. And they should, right? Because the graveyard is long, deep, and wide. And a lot of entrepreneurs in the space, particularly on the consumer side, have lived by this mantra, which is infringe, grow big, and ask for forgiveness. And that is something that has really not worked at all.
Yeah. Wow, okay, but at the same time, you've done it, and not only have you done it, you actually enjoy raising money. So we're gonna talk about that more when we come back in just a little bit. We're gonna take a quick break. Sit tight. We are the biggest entrepreneur destination on the planet. We are business rock stars.
So welcome to the Wave House. We've got a lot of interesting stuff going on here today.
Now, Office Land.
So downstairs, we're shooting a lookbook for our new merch line for Rootstrap, which is our product development workshop. Paul and Kristen from our production team is doing some influencer content stuff.
Today we're shooting Philo for our lookbook, our merchandise for Rootstrap. Paul, our amazing photographer here.
We usually have like one production every week. Like there's something always going on. It's either shooting for the lookbook. We've been doing a lot of social media influencer stuff.
She's our lovely influencer model that came in. She has an essence on what the brand bleeds out.
In Los Angeles, we have about 10 team members, which are kind of like the architects. They're the ones who strategize, come up with how things work together when building an app. So Frankie and I had opportunity of meeting when he was working on Snoopify. We were working with Snoop Dogg. He was the visionary and creator behind one of the most popular sticker apps ever created called Snoopify.
I just kind of watch the market, watch everything, watch other people's creativity, watch how other people think, and that usually inspires me. But specifically, I think just the whole open layout. I mean, there's no like You know, you don't have the cubicle vibes, the startup vibes. Like, I work at the breakfast table just in case breakfast comes. Sometimes, I mean, I just kick it mostly down here. I'll go upstairs every once in a while.
We are the biggest entrepreneur destination on the planet. Welcome to Business Rockstars. We are continuing our conversation with Jeff Yasuda, CEO and co-founder of Feed FM. And before we were talking about how you enjoy raising capital, and that's a really big statement, especially because you're in a difficult industry when it comes to convincing investors, the music industry. So why do you like it?
You know, it's raising capital it's a lengthy process. It is highly stressful. You know, for a lot of companies, particularly in tech, you need to raise capital before you can actually hire people. It's different in consulting, where you can start making money on day one through providing services. But the challenge with a lot of founders is that, it's the dreaded time where you see the bank balance starting to wane, and oh my gosh, I got to go out there and actually dial for dollars, right? Pound the pavement, start talking to people, asking for money. And a lot of people really don't like that. Yes, I am one of those unusual founders that actually likes to raise capital. And a lot of that is really about how I view the feedback. You know, when you go out and you talk to a lot of folks, you know, venture capitalists, institutional investors, even angels that see lots of deals,
right.
A lot of these guys have great pattern recognition and kind of see, okay, well, this deal really worked well because they had 4 out of the 5 things that Feed FM or some company has. And they're actually providing you free consulting. It's free consulting. It's great advice from really smart people. And if you start hearing that advice over and over and over again from a series of investors, that's probably a good indication that you're missing something or something is working, right? And so a lot of it is that, you know, as a founder, you also have to have good pattern recognition from the perspective of, wow, all of these potential investors, which is the market, they're actually saying, gosh, you really need to be thinking about getting a great technical co-founder, or they should, you know, you really need to think about the market size, or you really need to think about increasing the margins on your product because over time this isn't going to work. And so these are all things where, I mean, people pay lots of money to big consulting companies to get this, but you're actually getting this from, you know, a series of investors as you tap the market.
Yeah, so as a founder, you know, these meetings aside, how do you make sure you're doing the work to understand these patterns and the marketplace and all of that?
Yeah, you know, what's great is every investment process begins with something, right? You have to usually that something is actually a PowerPoint or a deck, right, that you've built. There have been many meetings where I don't even whip out the PowerPoint. I don't even go through the slides. I just have a conversation. But what's great about building those decks in advance is it starts to crystallize a process, right? What are the main things? Well, I got to think about, well, do I clearly articulate what I do? Do I clearly articulate what the problem is, how I solve that, what product or service that I've created to actually deal with that? Do I have any validation in the market, either from customers or business? And do I have a model that actually has unit economics that work, coupled with probably the most important thing, as I said, which is, do you have a team that can actually execute? And so when you start laying this out actually in a deck, it really starts to crystallize that process so that when you go out there on the road, you're not bumbling, you're crisp, you're precise.
You know what to focus on and
right.
continue to pay attention to, because like you said, it's all ever evolving.
That's right.
So any advice on building a solid team?
You know, probably the most, you know, I certainly didn't come up with this, but I have heard time and time again to always hire people that are better than you, right? If you're building a team and you're the dumbest person in the room, that is awesome, right? Because you've got people that are experts that can help you build your company that you can learn from. But
of course, those people are expensive to get.
They
so
can
how
be.
do you navigate
well,
that?
They can be, you know, and I think particularly in scenarios where, you know, startup capital cash said more directly, cash is a very, very limited resource for most startups. The beauty is that if you can get people to buy into the vision, and buy into the idea, buy into you as a CEO or a leader of the company, that has tremendous currency. Obviously, equity, a lot of people get in the startup game because they want a piece of the upside. And I think it's important, and I feel very strongly, that at least in my companies that, that everyone feels like they're an owner. And so, quite frankly, when I was a venture guy, and I've heard, investors say this in the past, that the moment that a founding team starts to feel like they're employees is the very moment that that investor has lost. Right? If you've got a team that believes in this, that can handle the ups and downs, that can be tough, but knows that at the end of it, there's something for me as an owner, as somebody that's integral to this process, that's pretty motivating.
Absolutely, and that's the perfect note to end on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
for
you,
all
Alex.
of your
It was great.
time
It was
and
great
insights.
meeting you.
Yeah, so interesting. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much.
And we are the biggest entrepreneur destination on the planet. This is Business Rockstars. After this short break, more Business Rockstars. Welcome back to Business Rockstars. Now let's go to Mark Lack.
We've got Rose Lawrence in the house. She's the owner of Red Bread. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
So what does your company do? It has something to do with bread, I'm guessing.
It does have something to do with bread and red. So we are a bakery here in Los Angeles, and we do all naturally leavened sourdough breads, pastries, and we also use 100% whole grains. We also ferment everything and really build from a pantry to make our foods really delicious and richly flavored.
So what inspired you to say, hey, look, I'm obviously a bread lover yourself, right? Mm-hmm. But I want to actually get into the business of bread. Like for me, I just want to buy it and eat and consume it. What made you want to start the business though?
Yeah, I've lived in a lot of places around the world, and so I've had the opportunity to be exposed to a lot of different food cultures and a lot of really great bread. And for the most part, bread in this country tastes like cardboard or tissues.
Okay, where's the best place you've had bread out of the country?
Oh, I mean, I think France is right up there.
France is very good. I've been there
so the
multiple
rustic
times. Theirs is really good, but I mean, we can't have that consistently. So you're trying to sort of take that and bring it here to LA?
Yeah, I'm trying to take those traditions of breads, those deep loves of the process, and bring it here. And what really inspired me to start the business was actually I ended up in a very common health crisis, which I was told not to eat bread, dairy, and sugar. And this seemed crazy to me because I never had any problems outside the country.
Things we probably should have in moderation anyways.
Well, everything in moderation, right? Yeah. Everything has the capacity to become its nemesis and its opposite. So it's all about balance. Yeah. But when I was told this, it didn't really make much sense because that was my diet elsewhere and I was great. So I decided, I had a very teenage reaction, I guess. It was like, I'll show you, I'll eat bread. Yeah. So I started making my own bread. And honestly, the minute I put my hands into the dough, it was so visceral and it felt so great. And it turned out wonderful.
Brought you back to being a kid playing with Play-Doh or something.
Exactly. I say that all the time in my classes that I teach around LA and around the country. It's just like, if you can remember playing with Play-Doh, you can make bread. It's within everybody's reach.
So there's a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs that tune in with us. And they're trying to figure out, what does it look like if I'm going to cut the only source of income I have from my job, and I'm going to go all in on this thing called entrepreneurship and be a business owner, which I've never done. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to cut the cord from my only source of income and be an entrepreneur and start this business, start this passion that I've always had, but I don't really know what to do yet, and I'm terrified, like most people on the spectrum of being scared, what it's going to look like. So what do you feel like are a couple things that they absolutely need to know when they get started or before they get started?
I think you have to become really accustomed to failure and be excited about failing, because that's how you learn. And in general, I think we sort of tell people don't make mistakes and don't fail. So we create added fear, and yet that is the space where you can really grow. If you don't fail in your first year, then I think you're really going to fail in your fifth year and you're not going to be able to recover from it.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So it's good to fail in the beginning. I would highly encourage entrepreneurs to collaborate and just stay committed, because you know, even if you are a seasoned entrepreneur and this is your 5th business, it's different in any industry you go into. You're going to encounter different problems. So much of the world is changing with technology that it's always a new frontier. And if you're excited about that, if you're always willing to be learning and talking to people and think about the people around you not as competitors, but collaborators, and see what you can add to it, I think that you will see yourself slowly succeed. But you made a good point. Like oftentimes entrepreneurs are like, I'm going to do this all at once and it's going to be grand. And setting realistic goals are really good too. And celebrating them as well, even if they're small, really boosts the morale for you and for the people working with you.
I think you just hit so many great things. You said, you know, you definitely have to 100%, I think, celebrate the small wins. One of my mentors taught me that you should celebrate the big wins as if they're normal and the small wins as if they're big.
Oh, I like that.
Because at the end of the day, right, I think so many people, they go, you know, when this happens, then I'll be happy. Then we'll celebrate. And I think you should celebrate the small wins that happen consistently. And when the big ones happen, you just go, we knew that was going to come.
Yeah.
That's what we've been working towards.
Yeah.
That's normal. We always win, right? And it's enjoying the journey instead of building up this, you know, when this happens, then I'll be happy. Like, only when I'm happy or only when I get to the destination or achieve this goal, then I'll feel significant or loved or respected.
I completely agree because, you know, they say like if you're doing an entrepreneurship, obviously you love what you're doing and so you're quote unquote living the dream, right?
Not everybody.
Well, I guess maybe not everybody, but even if you are living the dream, there's a lot of stuff. Like for instance, starting a bakery, I didn't foresee the hours and hours of administrative work I would have to do. And it can make me want to throw my head against a wall, to be perfectly honest, because it's not the part I love the most. But I have to remind
eventually
myself.
You can outsource that.
Yeah, eventually you can outsource that, but even so, like, I think that you should have some eyes on it and understand where your company is going. But just remember that, like, it is all of this that builds that dream that you're after, and every single thing you're doing adds to your ability to continue doing that, and finding the moments of joy and purpose in that will really keep you going. And just being happy in the moment, you know, because if you always put it as something you're going to reach, that finish line will just keep moving further and further away from you, and you're going to burn out.
Yeah, when you get there, you're just going to say, now what's next?
Yeah, exactly.
So I love that. Some fantastic points. And we're going to continue to peel back the layers on what makes your company successful. Keep extracting some of this wisdom. We'll be right back with Rose Lawrence. This is Business Rockstars. I'm Mark Lack. And we connect a community of entrepreneurs. If you'd like to be a part of it, you can join us on Facebook, Twitter, and online at businessrockstars.com.
What's the biggest mistake new companies make that cause them to fail? I'm Alex Worley, and this is a Business Rockstars Minute. One thing you absolutely don't want to do when creating your own business is set yourself up to fail. Here are 4 steps to help you along the way to creating a successful business. Number 1, have a plan. Create a business plan, blueprint, and executive summary. Know who you are, what you do, and how you do it better than anyone else. 2, do your research. Just because you have a gimmick or a catchy tagline does not mean you have a viable business. Number 3, do the math. Weigh your costs and find your profit margin. It doesn't matter if you have a low price point. If there isn't enough demand for your product or service, there's no business to be made. 4, go networking. Put yourself in front of all types of people. Go outside your comfort zone, and you never know who might need you and your services. I'm Alex Worley, and this has been a Business Rockstars Minute. You're watching Business Rockstars. Thanks for joining us. Now let's go to Mark Lack.
We've got Rose Lawrence joining us. She's the owner of Red Bread. Recap first what your company does.
So my company is a bakery located here in Los Angeles, and we do all naturally leavened breads, pastries with 100% whole grains, and we ship nationally, so you can get it anywhere.
All right. So big trend, raising money. There's shows like The Profit, Shark Tank, CNBC's Billion Dollar Buyer with Tillman Fertitta. Actually, we've had Damon John from Shark Tank on. And we've had the billionaire Tillman Fertitta on, so you're sitting in the same chair they sat.
Ooh,
so,
lucky.
Raising money is a big trend. My question, did you bootstrap or did you raise money?
So we did a little of both, actually. We definitely put our own savings in. I don't think that you can get away from doing that. Oh, my husband and I.
Okay.
So we put our own funds in. We did a Kickstarter campaign that was successful. We raised about $35,000 from our community.
We can't blow past that. Tell us about that. What was it?
It was a Kickstarter to launch the first brick and mortar. So we were at the Santa Monica Farmers Market,
So
which
there's
is...
more than one.
Huh?
There's more than one store.
Oh, there was the one store. And we closed it down about a year ago, and we're looking for a larger space right now. So real estate can be tricky, and that's what we're really committed to right now. And we do production instead and ship to your door, which has proved a really great model in order to get these kinds of breads that you don't find in the heartland or other places in the country to more people. And it arrives to your door, so it couldn't be more convenient.
Fantastic.
So the Kickstarter was very successful. It was very nerve-wracking. If you know, your public has never done a Kickstarter campaign, the money all tends to come in the last 48 hours. So you're just like biting your nails at the computer, hoping people love you. And then we ended up finding some partners here in LA who found us essentially, and were so excited about our product and wanted to invest. And so we partnered with them for a while, and that's how it all came together. So I think you have to be very open to different ways of funding and find out what's right for you.
So for getting back to brick and mortar versus online, what do you feel like is the big difference? For people out there that are like, should I start my company, or should I branch out from a brick and mortar to online? Or maybe I'm online, should we do a brick and mortar, right? There's so many different scenarios. You've experienced both.
Yeah.
What is the sort of difference between brick and mortar and online?
I think that online allows you to really cut down on your overhead. So if you're just launching and you feel pretty savvy interacting with social media and taking advantage of SEO, I would absolutely recommend just get your business started, because then you can start learning those lessons as an entrepreneur. And there's so many tools now online to help you do that. But if you're looking to have a lasting impact, people are always going to want to meet you face to face. You know, they want to see the person behind the story. They want to touch the tangible items, especially if you're doing what I'm doing, which is food.
I want to smell the bread.
Yeah, you want to smell the bread, right? And the cookies and everything baking. So again, I think it's like knowing what your product is and vetting out what the best resource is for you. And in some larger cities, you know, real estate can be a real hurdle for a new entrepreneur to get involved in. So it's really, there's no better time to sort of make your dream come true, because you do have online, which, you know, 40, 50 years ago was not an option.
Yeah, and it's also more cost effective than it's ever been before.
Yeah.
To put up a website, to get it, you know, properly structured and have a little maybe funnel in the back, or plug in an e-commerce for selling products and doing marketing.
Yeah, it's never been more
done.
approachable too. I mean, you really should, if you're looking to do. Yeah, I mean, there's Wix, there's Squarespace, there's tons of things where you can just plug and play, essentially. So it shouldn't be a hurdle. And knowing how to make a website, I think, is the new literacy of this century. So everyone should get on board that and at least become literate in it a little.
100%. I think most people are not spending what I believe to be enough time making sure that they at least are aware of what is happening in the online marketing space. So I'm glad that you brought that up. I want to know what you guys are doing on social media. We're talking about that right now. So break it down for us. So you're using Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook.
So we use primarily Instagram. We also use Twitter and Facebook. We don't use Snapchat a lot, because a lot of what we do, we like to remain there, both as our portfolio and for people to sort of scroll through and order a lot of custom items. So having things that remain in one place is really valuable to us. Also, because we're working in food, which is a largely visual medium, right? You eat with your eyes first. These are the most successful for us. I have also noticed that in terms of converting from social media to sales, Instagram is incredibly powerful, because people feel, especially if you set up the photo right, they feel like they could be the one taking that bite, or they are going to be the one taking that bite. So we have a large following on Instagram. We are at Redbread. And then on Facebook, we do a lot of information sharing. So we'll post longer form videos where you can see me shaping things. We'll post articles about how grains are evolving in this country.
So educational.
Yes, education.
Not just food.
Yeah, we try to make it educational, because a lot of what we are doing, as we talked about in the beginning, is unique. So unique that it involves educating the public or re-educating the public. And so we really use that platform to share information, to be collaborators with the public. And Twitter, we also do the same thing. Although I would say Twitter we primarily use to sort of give snaps to our fellow bakers and people that we're collaborating with, because we really want to show the people that inspire us and the community we're a part of. And I think that there is evolving communities online. I've met so many great other entrepreneurs through just simple interactions of reaching out and being like, hey, I love what you do. We should do something sometime.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think networking, which can be really scary for a lot of people, is so easy in the online space. You know, I read this great book in law school called Never Eat Lunch Alone, and it has a lot of skills. So if you're scared and you don't know how to network.
Isn't it Keith Ferrazzi?
I think so.
It's Keith Ferrazzi, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a great book because it's really simple, approachable ways to just kind of make friends, which is what networking is all about.
So somebody says, hey, I love Rose Lawrence. She's inspirational. I want to follow her. Maybe I want to get in touch with you. And maybe they even want to buy some of your bread. Where can they do that? So
you can buy our bread on our website. It's eatredbread.com. You can get in touch with me by emailing me directly or contacting us through Instagram. I also do pop-ups around LA, and I'll be doing a pop-up in New York soon, so I'm starting to do pop-ups in other parts of the country, and I teach a ton of classes, so I'm really committed to educating and sharing my knowledge, and we teach classes in bread making, pastry making, working with whole grains. I really want to create such an overwhelming demand in the customers' mouths so that everyone meets that demand. Because that's how we end up with better bread in this country as a foundation and also more sustainable agriculture. For me, like you said earlier, it's not just about making a dollar, it's about making a difference. And that's really like an underlying foundation for our business.
Well, fantastic. I appreciate you for coming on the show, and I love seeing somebody who's not only passionate about their business, but also about bread. Rose, thanks for coming on the show.
So grateful to be here. You're wonderful to talk to. Thank you so much.
I'm Mark Lack. This is Business Rockstars. We connect a community of entrepreneurs. If you'd like to be a part of it, you can join us on Facebook, Twitter, and online at businessrockstars.com.
After this short break, more Business Rockstars. I'm Alex Worley, and this is Business Rockstars. And today I'm joined by Joshua Manley. He is the CEO of Reply Buy. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So did you always want to be an entrepreneur?
I did. When
did you know?
Well, I think every aspiring entrepreneur finds out when they build their first lemonade stand around 4 to 5 years old. No, I'm just kidding.
Actually, a lot do, but or some variation of a lemonade stand.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah. So what was it for you that it clicked in your mind? You know what? I want to be my own boss.
It wasn't necessarily being my own boss. I think it was the realization of the opportunity that we have living in this country, you know, and the opportunity to go out and do something on your own. Right? Because you only go around one time. And that's how I've always viewed my career is you can go get a job, you can work in a bunch of different spaces, but I think being an entrepreneur, creating something new is probably one of the most rewarding things you could do, at least in my opinion. So was
the innovation part for you that got you really motivated?
Yeah, and I think, you know, I can't remember exactly what the saying was, but this always stuck with me is no one on their deathbed says, I wish I would have worked harder at that 9 to 5, right? And that's what I mean by you only go around one time.
Make it count. Make sure you enjoy it and you're passionate about it.
Make sure you're fulfilled. Exactly.
So why Reply Buy? What made you say, I love this idea and I want this to be my life's work?
Yeah, well, definitely the fact that no one had done it, there had to be an easier way. In my mind, there had to be an easier way to unlock a mobile purchase. The whole world uses SMS or text messaging. A form of messaging. In fact, it's the most widely adopted form of communication in the history of mankind. Why was no one truly combining that in a seamless way with payments on a mobile device?
Yeah, because when it comes to ticket sales for sports, it can be a pain sometimes.
But exactly. I mean, when I really looked at the space and I said, okay, we're going to do something in mobile, we're going to do something in messaging and transactions. Putting those pieces together, there was a ton of existing fragmentation in the market. So iOS versus Android, So you've got challenges there. You've got software challenges. A simple text message, which the whole world uses, comes pre-installed on over 4 billion devices across the planet.
So in addition to liking new ideas and executing them, are you a sports fan?
I'm a huge sports fan.
So was that part of the passion and the motivation behind starting this?
Yeah, it was. I mean, you know, I love sports. I love the market that we work in. It's fun. We're a mobile payments platform, but it was an excellent product market fit for what we were introducing. So sports, there's clearly a pain point. You know, getting people off the couch, making it easier for them to, you know, go out and see their favorite team and make that commitment and have it happen in real time and give them that instant gratification that I think a lot of people are looking for.
So you were coming from the fan perspective too, which I'm sure really, really helps keep your customers happy because you're one of them.
We're one of them, and that's the consumer side of the business. I mean, the other side of the business is empowering our teams to effectively communicate to their audience and reach their fans in a more meaningful way. So right now they're sending emails, they're tweeting at you, they're doing whatever they can, they're calling you, which no one answers their calls if they don't know the number anymore. So helping bridge that gap, that communication gap between the client on the entertainment and team side and the consumers.
Yeah, very interesting. Would you consider yourself an organized person?
I am very organized, I think. You can ask my wife. Yeah, I'd say in most cases fairly organized.
So what methods do you use to stay organized in your business specifically?
Geez, there's 3 or 4 core systems that we use. I mean, we use Slack, I use Dropbox.
Explain how you use those. It's interesting to learn.
I'm a huge fan of Dropbox, in all honesty. I mean, it just makes my life easier.
To keep documents and different things organized?
Yep, yep, exactly. And just constantly monitoring the numbers, you know, through our own dashboard and keeping my finger on the pulse of what's going on in the business and how we continue to grow.
And I'm sure that there's quite a bit of networking that takes place with the different teams that you want to get involved. What's your method to networking with them?
To network with them, I mean, it's very relationship driven. You know, that is the interesting thing about the market that we play in is it is a bit of a fraternity. A lot of these teams know each other. They have for 20, 30 years. So breaking through and showing value, demonstrating value in the market, the word travels pretty fast. But you have to break through because you can imagine they get their door knocked on a lot.
But once you're in, then it kind of happens organically.
Yeah, we're working with you know, over 100 teams across the NBA, NHL, NFL, Major League Soccer, universities. So it's great.
Very cool. We will be right back with my guest, Joshua Manley. He's the CEO of ReplyBuy. We're here to inspire, inform, and connect a community of entrepreneurs. I'm Alex Worley, and this is Business Rockstars. Now, Tech It.
Let's take a step in the right direction and get these life-changing apps that can help you make the most out of your workday. The first app on the list, Pocket. If you're wasting time reading articles, watching videos, or browsing the web when really you should be working, then you need to get Pocket. The app lets you save directly from your browser and return to it later on. Similar to Evernote, Pocket syncs across all platforms, including your phone, tablet, and computer, so you can view them anytime on any device, even without an internet connection. The second one, Forest. Forest tracks your productivity and lets you visualize your progress in the form of a tree. If you stay focused for 30 minutes, the tree blooms fully. If you leave the app during that time period, the tree dies. The goal is to eventually have a forest of trees that represent the hard work that you put in. This oddly satisfying visual allows you to see your progress and motivates you to grow your forest. Last app, DocuSign. Now you can sign any document with just a few clicks on your phone and from anywhere. Easily save, edit, and send files with your personal signature. This app is free and comes on iOS and Android.
I'm Alex Worley, and this is Business Rockstars. And we are joined by Joshua Manley. He is the CEO of ReplyBuy. So we're just going to put you in the hot seat right away. What is your 30-second elevator pitch?
30-second elevator pitch. We created a technology and a system that allows you to make a purchase with simply responding to a text message.
Pretty
instant.
simple. Just making it really easy for sports fans.
If you can reply to a text, you can unlock a purchase using our service.
So how many years have you been in business for?
Yeah, so we deployed this within our current market, October of 2014.
So still someone new.
Still someone new.
So are you still sticking to that original business plan, or has it evolved quite a bit over the past couple years?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely evolved. I mean, one of the things we did early on is we tested in different markets, wanted to understand where was the best fit with what we created. The mission has never changed, right? We want to make people's lives easier. We want to make buying things on a mobile device easier and make it universal. But that said, yeah, we tested in a couple different markets, and we ultimately landed at least with the first vertical within sports and entertainment.
Yeah. And what were some of those initial things that you planned for and had a vision for that were really, really helpful in hindsight a couple years later?
Yeah, I think probably the largest, maybe best example of that would be we are leveraging something people do on a daily basis. We did not build an app. We intentionally did not build an app. We can tie into apps. We can tie into things like Facebook Messenger, but we're not, at our core, we're not an app-based product or an app-based solution.
So what were some of the obstacles that you faced once you started to grow?
Once we started to grow, yeah, I mean, that's a really exciting time, but it's also being proactive and saying, what does the company need to look like, 12 months from now to sustain the growth and past that. So,
and were you able to keep that under control, or did it feel sometimes
yeah,
like you were
it's a roller
growing
coaster. It's
too
an absolute roller
fast,
coaster.
or?
Yeah, it peaks and valleys, right? We always talk about peaks and valleys in the company, but yeah, I mean, we're still here. We're seeing exponential growth over the past 24 months, so it's exciting.
So what were some of the things that came with the growth? I'm sure, for instance, a bigger team, right?
Bigger team, yep. New faces, new people, getting to know them. Also, tightening the culture. That's something, again, that we touched on earlier. That's really important to us.
Yeah, how do you do that? How do you create a company culture that's fun and effective?
Well, I mean, you hire the right people, especially on the sales side. Mishiring a salesperson can cost your startup, your company, a lot of money, because you usually find out 3 to 6 months down the line that they can't sell.
Oh, man.
But hiring A players, I mean, we want people who want to be a part of something and grow it, right? They're not watching the clock. They understand our vision. They understand where we're trying to go in the space.
Who would you say are the biggest leaders on your team that you've surrounded yourself with that are just crucial to running your business?
Well, we have a tremendous board. We have a tremendous group of investors in New York, specifically like the Phoenix, Arizona area and the Bay Area. But core management team, I mean, my co-founder, Anthony Saya, he's fantastic. He's the best CTO I've ever worked with. Brandon O'Halloran, who runs sales and business development. Jen Kendall, who runs ops. We've got a great team in place. Feel really lucky.
And what would you say is your tactic for making sure that you are reaching your goals and staying on track towards moving toward them?
Boy, well, we always aim high, right? So internally, we have a baseline goal and we have a stretch goal. And so we say, shoot for the moon, hit an eagle. Shoot for an eagle, hit a rock, right? So aim your targets high, but keep your eye on the numbers, right? What are you doing? Don't just sit back and wait for it. If something isn't materializing the way you want it to, what are you going to do to change that?
And when it comes to growing and working with a new team, what's kind of your process for expanding?
Yeah, when we bring on a new client?
Yeah.
So we have best practices in place. We'll make recommendations and we'll set up, calls or regular standing call to evaluate where things are, what we could be doing better. And again, those best practices, this has worked. This has worked in other markets.
So have you had a mentor that's really, really helped shape the way that you run your business?
Yeah. I mean, Mario Martinez is definitely one of my best mentors, I'd say, in my professional career. I mean, he's got a sound mind, sound advice. So I give him a ton of credit
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much to my guest, Joshua Manley. He is the CEO of Reply By. We are here to inspire, inform, and connect a community of entrepreneurs. I'm Alex Worley, and this is Business Rockstars. Thanks for sharing the time with us. I'm Alex Worley, and we'll see you next time on Business Rockstars.